Owen Myers had always imagined his life might one day take a turn toward excitement, but never in his wildest dreams did he expect it to start with a thud, a crash, and a rather unsettling noise that sounded like a cross between a dying whale and a blender stuck on puree. The sound echoed through the floorboards of his old Victorian house, reverberating up to where he sat in the living room, midway through a bowl of instant ramen and the latest episode of Cosmos Redux. At first, Owen ignored it, assuming it was the old furnace complaining again, but when the noise came again, louder this time, followed by what distinctly sounded like cursing in a language he didn't understand, his curiosity got the better of him. "Great," he muttered, setting his bowl down. "Either I've got raccoons in the basement, or my water heater learned how to swear." He grabbed the flashlight he kept by the front door, along with a crowbar he'd recently purchased during a brief and ill-fated attempt at DIY home repairs. His stomach churned, and not just from the ramen. The basement of the house, inherited from his late aunt, had always given him the creeps. It wasn't just the cobwebs or the way the walls seemed to sweat on humid days, it was the feeling that the shadows there were a little too alive. Owen swung the basement door open and peered into the darkness. "Okay," he called out, trying to sound braver than he felt. "If this is some kind of prank, I just want you to know I have a very aggressive crowbar and a terrible aim, which makes me doubly dangerous." The silence that followed was somehow worse than any response he might have expected. Steeling himself, he took the first creaking step down the wooden stairs, the flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The air grew cooler, the scent of damp earth mingling with something metallic. It was faint but distinct, like the smell of ozone after a lightning storm. And then he saw it. At first, he thought it was a broken mannequin, pale, slender limbs sprawled awkwardly against the wall near his old boiler. But as the flashlight beam steadied, he realized the figure was breathing. The pale surface wasn't plastic, but skin, smooth and silver, rippling faintly as though it were alive. Patterns of iridescent color danced across the figure's body, shifting like the auroras Owen had always dreamed of seeing in person. "Whoa," Owen whispered, before immediately regretting it. The figure stirred, turning its head toward him. Its eyes glowed faintly, an unsettling shade of blue-green that seemed to peer straight through him. "Who?" he began, but the figure cut him off with a groan, low, resonant, and very annoyed. "Do you have any idea," the figure said in perfect English, "how difficult it is to land a stealth pod in this atmosphere? Honestly, you people and your oxygen, it's like trying to park a spaceship in a cloud of molasses." Owen blinked, his grip on the crowbar slackening. What?" The figure, or rather the woman, as Owen realized now that she was sitting up, gave him a withering look. "Never mind. Just point me toward your nearest interdimensional transporter, and I'll be out of your hair." Owen stared at her, then at the crowbar in his hand, as though it might offer some explanation for the insanity unfolding before him. You're an alien," he said finally, the words feeling ridiculous even as they left his mouth. She raised an eyebrow, which glinted faintly in the flashlight beam. "Congratulations, human. You win the gold star for observational skills. Now, unless you'd like to be disintegrated when my pursuers arrive, I suggest you help me, quickly." Pursuers?" Owen stammered. "Wait, hold on. What are you talking about? Why are you in my basement? Why? Do you always ask this many questions, or is this a special occasion?" The alien woman interrupted, standing unsteadily. She was tall, easily 6 feet, with limbs that moved with an unsettling fluidity. Her iridescent skin shifted as she moved, reflecting the flashlight beam in a way that made her look like a walking hologram. "Listen, what's your name, Owen? Yeah, you look like an Owen. Owen, I need a place to hide, preferably somewhere less damp." Owen opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, his brain struggling to keep up. "Okay," he said finally. "This is either the weirdest fever dream I've ever had, or I'm officially losing my mind." The alien woman rolled her glowing eyes. "Oh, for the love of... Look, I'll make this simple. My name is Kailari. I'm from a planet called Taris 7, which you've probably never heard of. I'm being hunted by a very unpleasant species known as the Gravath, and unless you want them to turn this charming little house into a crater, you'll let me stay here until I can figure out my next move." Owen hesitated, the word no forming on his lips, but before he could say it, a low rumble shook the house. The lights flickered, and the smell of ozone intensified. "What was that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kailari's expression hardened. "That," she said, "would be the Gravath. They've found me." Owen stared at her, his heart pounding. "You're kidding, right?" She smiled, a sharp, humorless thing. "Does this look like a face that's kidding?" Before Owen could answer, another rumble shook the house, louder this time. Kailari grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "We need to move," she said, pulling him toward the stairs. "Now." As they raced up the steps, Owen couldn't help but think, this is not how I imagined my evening going. Owen had never considered himself much of a runner, but with Kailari dragging him up the basement stairs like a kid being yanked out of a toy aisle, he discovered he could sprint surprisingly fast when faced with the prospect of alien invaders. The house groaned under the vibrations of something large, larger than anything that should have been on a quiet suburban street in New Jersey. "What exactly do they want?" Owen gasped as they reached the kitchen. The counters rattled, a mug of stale coffee sliding dangerously close to the edge. Kailari released his arm and rolled her shoulders with an air of someone bracing for a fight. "Oh, nothing much," she said casually. "Just me, dead or alive, preferably dead. And possibly your planet, because the Gravath have this charming habit of raising anything remotely inconvenient." Owen's mouth fell open. "Raising? Like total destruction? Fire and brimstone?" "Yes," Kailari replied. "Though they're not big on fire, more like plasma disintegration, cleaner." She tilted her head, studying him. "You're turning an alarming shade of pale. You humans are so fragile." Owen staggered back against the counter, gripping the edge for support. "Why does every alien species in the universe want to blow up Earth? What did we ever do to you people?" Kailari gave a dismissive wave, her iridescent skin shimmering faintly. "It's not personal. Think of it like a pest control issue. The Gravath see your planet as an anthill. I'm just the unfortunate crumb you dropped near it." "That's not comforting," Owen shot back, his voice pitching higher than he intended. "Wasn't meant to be," she said dryly, her attention shifting to the window. "They'll send scouts first, small drones to pinpoint my location." "Drones?" Owen echoed, inching toward the sink where his phone sat charging. "Like flying robots? How small are we talking? Could they fit in a toaster?" Kailari frowned at him. "Why would they fit in a— Wait, are you serious?" "Hey," Owen said defensively. "You're the one hiding in my basement, okay? I think I'm allowed a little paranoia." Before Kailari could retort, a high-pitched whine pierced the air, followed by the sound of something slicing through the wooden frame of the front door. Owen's instincts screamed for him to duck, but his curiosity got the better of him. Peering around Kailari, he saw a small metallic sphere floating just inside the entryway. It was no bigger than a basketball, its sleek surface covered in tiny glowing lines that pulsed with an ominous blue light. "That's a scout drone," Kailari said calmly. "We have about 30 seconds before it transmits my location to the Gravath fleet." Owen panicked. 30 seconds? What are we supposed to do in 30 seconds? Kailari turned to him with a flat expression. "Destroy it." "Destroy it?" Owen gestured wildly. "With what? My coffee maker?" Kailari sighed, muttering something in her alien language that Owen suspected wasn't complimentary. She reached for a small, disc-shaped device attached to her belt. With a flick of her wrist, the disc expanded into a glowing, translucent shield. "Stand back," she ordered. Owen, eager to comply, ducked behind the kitchen island. Kailari raised the shield just as the drone emitted a sharp, blinding beam of light. The beam struck the shield and dissipated harmlessly, but Kailari's expression tightened. "Anytime you want to help," she called over her shoulder. "I don't know how to fight alien drones," Owen shouted. His eyes darted around the kitchen, landing on a cast-iron skillet hanging from the wall. He grabbed it with both hands, and summoning every ounce of courage he didn't have, hurled it at the drone. The skillet struck the drone with a metallic clang, knocking it off balance. Sparks erupted from its casing, and it spiraled wildly before crashing into the refrigerator. Owen stared in stunned silence as the drone sputtered and went dark. Kyle Ari lowered her shield, turning to him with an incredulous look. "You hit it with a frying pan." "Skillet," Owen corrected automatically, still clutching the counter for support. Kyle Ari blinked, then let out a sharp laugh. It was the first time Owen had seen her smile, and it was oddly disarming. "Well, I'll be damned. Primitive, but effective. Glad you're entertained," Owen said, his voice shaking. "Can you explain why my house is suddenly a target for intergalactic pest control?" Kalari leaned against the counter, her glow dimming slightly. "Fine. Story time. But make it quick. We don't have much time before the next drone shows up." Owen crossed his arms, trying to ignore the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. "I'm all ears." Kyle Ari hesitated, as though weighing how much to tell him. Finally, she said, "I'm a scientist, or was before all this. I worked for the Tyrillian Research Coalition, studying ways to restore ecosystems on planets damaged by war or industrial collapse. My team developed something revolutionary, a nanite system capable of accelerating planetary healing." Owen frowned. "Sounds like a good thing." "It was," she said, her tone darkening, "until the Gravith got wind of it. They're scavengers, parasites. They destroy civilizations and harvest technology for their own use. When they learned about our research, they demanded we hand it over." "And you said no?" Owen guessed. Kylari's lips curved into a bitter smile. "I said no. My superiors said yes, but I wasn't about to let the Gravath use our creation as a weapon, so I borrowed the prototype and ran." "Borrowed?" Owen arched an eyebrow. "Semantics," Kalari replied breezily. "The point is, the Gravath want their toy back, and they're not keen on taking no for an answer." Owen sank into a chair, running a hand through his hair. "So you're hiding in my basement with a piece of galaxy-shattering tech, and now a swarm of alien murderers is on its way to kill us both. Did I miss anything?" Kylari shrugged. "Pretty much covers it." He let out a hollow laugh. "Great. Just great. My aunt always said this house would be the death of me. I just didn't think she meant it literally." Kylari smirked, though there was a hint of sympathy in her expression. "For what it's worth, you've handled this better than most humans would." "Oh, sure," Owen said, throwing up his hands. "I'm a regular action hero. Next, I'll take down a Gravath with a spatula." "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Kalari said, her tone serious again. "We need to mask my signal before they send reinforcements. Is there anything in this house I can use to amplify a disruption field?" Owen blinked. "Amplify a what now?" Kylari sighed. "Do you have a radio antenna?" "Not exactly," he admitted, "but I have an old TV in the attic. Would that work?" She considered this for a moment, then nodded. "It'll have to. Lead the way." As they made their way upstairs, Owen couldn't resist muttering, "Worst house guest ever." Kylari's laughter followed him up the stairs. Owen led Kylari up the narrow staircase to the attic, his flashlight beam bouncing off dusty wooden walls that seemed to creak in protest with every step. The attic had always been a sort of graveyard for all the failed hobbies and half-baked ideas of his family, a graveyard Owen had seldom dared to disturb. Kylari, for her part, was unimpressed. She wrinkled her nose at the musty smell and flicked a glowing fingertip through the cobwebs. "Charming," she muttered, stepping gingerly over a precarious stack of cardboard boxes. "Is this where you humans keep your treasure?" "If by treasure you mean old photo albums and broken Christmas lights, then yeah," Owen replied, brushing aside an old quilt draped over a stack of books. "But somewhere under all this junk is a TV. A big one. From the 90s. It weighs as much as a small car, but it might have what you need. Kalari raised an eyebrow. You humans had television technology in the 1990s. I assume that was still your medieval period. Owen shot her a look. Let me guess. You come from a super advanced civilization that's perfected everything, right? Kalari smirked. Not everything. We never figured out why you people are so obsessed with avocado toast. Owen sighed and turned his attention back to the clutter. Okay, let's focus on the alien murderers trying to disintegrate my house, shall we? Fair point, Kalari said, kneeling beside him to sift through a box of electronics. Her fingers moved with surprising dexterity, tossing aside tangled cords and dusty remote controls. After a few minutes, she paused, holding up a clunky rabbit ear antenna triumphantly. This will do. Owen squinted at the ancient relic. That? Are you serious? Kalari twirled it in her hands, the iridescent glow of her skin reflecting off the metal. It's primitive, but it'll work. I just need to reroute its wiring into a temporary disruption field. Owen leaned back on his heels, staring at her as though she'd just announced she was going to turn a toaster into a time machine. You're saying that thing can stop the Gravath from finding us? Kalari grinned. Not stop exactly. Think of it like jamming a signal. They'll know I'm somewhere in the area, but they won't be able to pinpoint my exact location. Great, Owen muttered. So we're upgrading from sitting ducks to slightly confused ducks. Kalari shot him a sidelong glance. Do all humans complain this much, or are you just special? It's a coping mechanism, Owen replied. That and sarcasm. You'd be amazed how much better the apocalypse feels with a good joke. Kalari chuckled softly and set to work on the antenna, her glowing fingertips manipulating wires with practiced ease. Owen watched in fascination as she removed a small cylindrical device from her belt, a tool that hummed faintly and emitted tiny bursts of light. Is that alien tech? Owen asked, inching closer. No, Kalari deadpanned. I picked it up at your local hardware store. Yes, it's alien tech. Owen rolled his eyes but couldn't help being impressed. What does it do? It's a universal converter, Kalari explained, not looking up from her work. It allows me to integrate alien technology with your primitive systems. Primitive, huh? Owen said, crossing his arms. I'll have you know humans invented pizza and the internet. Name a better combo. Kalari paused, as though genuinely considering this. Touché. They worked in relative silence for the next few minutes, with Kalari focused on her modifications, and Owen busy untangling cords and clearing space on an old workbench. He tried not to think about the fact that his life had gone from zero to alien fugitive drama in less than 24 hours. Every now and then, he glanced at Kalari, trying to wrap his head around the surreal reality of her presence. Finally, she straightened, holding up the modified antenna. The rabbit ears now glowed faintly, encased in a shimmering web of translucent wiring that pulsed with light. It's done. Owen blinked. That doesn't look like it came from the 90s anymore, Kalari smirked. Let's hope it doesn't act like it either. Help me set it up. They climbed out onto the roof, the cool night air a welcome relief from the stuffy attic. The stars above were unusually bright, scattered across the sky like spilled sugar. For a moment, Owen forgot about the danger they were in, marveling at the sight. Do your stars look like this? He asked, half to himself. Kalari glanced up, her expression softening. Similar, but not the same. Every world has its own sky. Owen hesitated, caught off guard by the wistfulness in her tone. Do you miss it? Your home? Kalari didn't answer right away. Instead, she busied herself securing the antenna to a vent pipe. Finally, she said, I miss the idea of it. But the place I called home doesn't exist anymore, not the way I knew it. Owen wasn't sure what to say to that, so he stayed quiet, handing her tools when she asked for them. As she finished tightening the last connection, a low hum filled the air, and the antenna lit up like a tiny beacon. That should do it, Kalari said, stepping back to admire her work. The disruption field is active. The Gravath will have to search blindly now. Owen exhaled, relief washing over him. Okay, that's good. So, what now? Do we just wait? Kailari shook her head. Waiting is a death sentence. The Gravath are relentless. We need to figure out our next move. Owen frowned. What's the plan then? You're the one with intergalactic experience. Kailari hesitated, her confidence faltering for the first time. The plan was to hide until I could contact someone I trust, but with the Gravath this close, that's no longer an option. Owen ran a hand through his hair, his nerves fraying again. So we're winging it? Fantastic. Kailari gave him a faint smile. You're still alive, aren't you? Barely, Owen muttered. He glanced at her, then added, You know, for someone who's technically a fugitive, you're surprisingly chill about all this. Kailari shrugged. Panic is inefficient, and besides, she gestured toward the stars. If they do catch us, at least you'll get a front-row seat to a Gravath invasion. That's something most humans don't live to talk about. Owen stared at her, horrified. That's not even remotely funny. Kailari grinned. Humor is a coping mechanism, remember? Despite himself, Owen laughed. It was short and sharp, but it was a laugh all the same. Okay, fair point. But let's keep the apocalypse jokes to a minimum. No promises, Kailari said, her grin widening. As they climbed back inside, Owen couldn't help but feel the faintest glimmer of hope. Kailari might be an alien fugitive, and the Gravath might be breathing down their necks, but at least he wasn't facing it alone. That, he decided, was something to hold on to. The next morning, Owen awoke to the smell of burning electronics and a faint hum coming from somewhere in the house. For a brief, blissful moment, he forgot about the intergalactic fugitive hiding in his attic and the alien murder drones hell-bent on vaporizing them both. But then, a loud zap followed by Kailari's frustrated cursing shattered any hopes of normalcy. Groaning, Owen rolled out of bed and stumbled downstairs to the kitchen, where Kailari was hunched over the toaster. Sparks flew from its innards as she prodded it with one of her glowing tools, muttering under her breath in her alien language. I don't even want to know, Owen said, grabbing a mug and pouring himself the dregs of yesterday's coffee. Kailari looked up, her expression both sheepish and defiant. Your technology is infuriatingly basic. Did you know this toaster has no defensive capabilities whatsoever? Yes, because it's a toaster, Owen replied. What are you even doing? I'm enhancing it, she said, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. If the Gravath find us again, we'll need every advantage we can get. With a few modifications, this could become a viable projectile weapon. Owen stared at her. You're weaponizing my toaster? Kailari shrugged. Desperate times. Well, if you're done turning my kitchen into a sci-fi junkyard, Owen said, gesturing to the scattered wires and parts littering the counter, maybe we can focus on, I don't know, not getting killed? Kailari set the toaster down with a sigh. Relax. The disruption field is holding. The Gravath won't find us unless we do something stupid, like broadcast our location or order pizza. Noted, Owen said, taking a sip of coffee. So what's the plan? Are we just hiding forever? Kailari's expression darkened. We can't hide forever. The Gravath will escalate their search. Eventually they'll broaden their sweep, and when that happens... She trailed off, but Owen didn't need her to finish the sentence. He set his mug down, his stomach churning. So what do we do? Kailari hesitated, clearly reluctant to voice whatever idea was forming in her mind. Finally, she said, We need to contact someone who can help, someone with the resources to fight back. Like another alien? Owen asked, raising an eyebrow. Kailari nodded. There's a resistance network, small but resourceful. They've been fighting the Gravath for decades. Great, Owen said, rubbing his temples. How do we contact them? That's the problem, Kailari admitted. The Gravath control most communication channels. Any transmission we send could be intercepted. Owen frowned. So we're stuck? Kailari's lips curved into a mischievous smile. Not necessarily. Your planet has something the Gravath don't understand, something they overlook because they see it as primitive. What, sarcasm? Owen deadpanned. Kailari chuckled. Close, radio waves. Owen blinked. Radio waves? Like AM/FM? Exactly, Kailari said, her excitement growing. The Gravath rely on advanced quantum networks. They've long since abandoned analog frequencies, but if we can rig a transmitter to broadcast on an old radio band, we might be able to send a message without them noticing. Owen stared at her, trying to process the idea. So you're saying we're going to save the world with a boombox? Kailari grinned. If it works, yes. Fantastic, Owen muttered. Let me guess, you need me to dig through the attic again? Correct, Kailari said cheerfully. I'll need anything that can function as a transmitter. And hurry. Time is not on our side. An hour later, Owen stood in the attic, covered in dust and surrounded by piles of outdated electronics. He held up an old Walkman and a set of tangled headphones. Will this work? Kailari poked her head through the hatch, her expression skeptical. What is that? It's a Walkman, Owen said. It plays cassette tapes. You know, music? Pre-MP3? Kailari tilted her head, clearly unimpressed. Humans really are obsessed with unnecessary gadgets. Unnecessary? Owen said, offended. I'll have you know this thing was cutting edge in its time. Sure it was, Kailari said dryly. But no, it won't work. Keep looking. Owen sighed and tossed the Walkman aside, muttering under his breath about ungrateful aliens. After another 15 minutes of searching, he unearthed an old ham radio set buried beneath a stack of yellowing newspapers. Found something, he called down. Kailari climbed up to join him, her eyes lighting up when she saw the radio. This could work, she said, taking it from him and examining it closely. It's ancient, but with a few upgrades, it should be able to broadcast a signal strong enough to reach the resistance. Great, Owen said, but how do we know they'll hear it? And even if they do, how do we know they'll come? Kailari's expression grew somber. We don't, but it's our best chance. Owen nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Okay, what do you need me to do? Just stay out of my way, Kailari said, already dismantling the radio. And maybe bring me more coffee. This is going to take a while. Hours passed as Kailari worked tirelessly, her alien tools humming and sparking as she modified the radio. Owen busied himself cleaning up the attic, though his mind kept drifting to the Gravath and the danger they were in. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were on borrowed time. Finally, Kailari stepped back, wiping a faint sheen of sweat from her brow. It's done. The radio now looked nothing like its original form. Its knobs and dials had been replaced with glowing panels, and a small pulsing crystal sat at its center. Is it supposed to glow like that? Owen asked. Kailari smirked. The crystal acts as an amplifier. It's harmless, unless you're a Gravath, in which case it's highly toxic. Good to know, Owen said. So what now? Now, Kailari said, flipping a switch. We send the signal. The radio emitted a low hum, followed by a series of strange melodic tones that made Owen's ears tingle. Kailari leaned into the microphone, speaking in her native language. Her voice was calm but urgent, her words flowing like music. What are you saying? Owen asked. I'm identifying myself and requesting immediate assistance, Kailari explained. If the Resistance hears this, they'll know it's me. And if the Gravath hear it? Owen asked nervously. Kailari's expression hardened. Then we'll know soon enough. As the signal broadcast into the void, Owen felt a chill run down his spine. Somewhere out there, friend or foe, someone was listening. The radio's melodic tones faded into a faint hum, leaving a heavy silence in the attic. Owen stared at the glowing crystal at its center, half expecting it to explode, or worse, summon the Gravath instantly. He shifted uneasily, his nerves fraying under the weight of what they'd just done. So, How long do we wait? He asked, crossing his arms. Kailari tilted her head, her glowing fingertips dancing over the radio's modified controls. Hard to say. The resistance is spread thin across the galaxy. It could be minutes or hours, or... She trailed off, her expression darkening. Or never, Owen finished for her, sinking onto a dusty crate. Cool. Love those odds. Kailari shot him a sidelong glance. You're welcome to take a nap while we wait. Maybe dream up some optimism? Owen groaned, rubbing his temples. I don't think optimism is compatible with my brain chemistry. Kailari smirked. I'm beginning to think sarcasm is your species' primary language. Right up there with bad decisions, Owen muttered. He eyed the radio warily. Are you sure that thing won't attract the Gravath? Relax, Kailari said, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. The frequency is encrypted. They won't trace it unless they're actively monitoring for old radio signals, which they won't be. To them, this is like trying to eavesdrop on a caveman. Comforting, Owen said dryly. So we're betting on alien bad guys underestimating us. Great plan. Before Kailari could respond, the radio crackled to life, emitting a burst of static, followed by a series of chirping, warbling tones. Kailari stiffened, her glowing skin shimmering brighter. They heard us, she said, her voice tight with both relief and tension. Wait, already? Owen sat up, his heart pounding. That's good, right? Kailari didn't answer immediately. She adjusted the controls, her movements sharp and precise. The warbling tones gave way to a garbled voice, speaking a language Owen didn't understand. Kailari responded in kind, her words quick and clipped, her expression unreadable. Kailari? Owen said nervously. What's going on? She held up a hand to silence him, her focus entirely on the conversation. After a few tense moments, the voice cut out, replaced by a steady hum. Kailari turned to Owen, her expression grim. Well, Owen pressed, was that the cavalry? It was one of the resistance leaders, Kailari said. They received our message, but they can't send reinforcements. The Gravath have blockaded the nearest star system. Of course they have, Owen muttered. So what does that mean for us? It means we're on our own, Kailari said, her jaw tightening. But they did send coordinates for a hidden outpost. If we can reach it, we'll be safe, at least for a while. Owen frowned. Okay, but how exactly are we supposed to reach it? It's not like I have a spaceship parked in my garage. Kailari hesitated, then gave him a sheepish look. Actually... 10 minutes later, Owen stood in his backyard, staring at the overgrown vegetable patch. Kailari knelt beside it, brushing aside leaves to reveal a hidden hatch embedded in the ground. You've had a spaceship here the whole time? Owen asked, incredulous. Kailari shrugged. I didn't think you'd appreciate me landing it on your roof. That's actually fair, Owen admitted. But why is it in my garden? It's cloaked, Kailari explained. Even the Gravath can't detect it unless they're standing right on top of it. Owen shook his head in disbelief. You know, if this whole alien fugitive thing doesn't work out, you could make a killing in real estate. Comes with a hidden spaceship, would sell any house. Kailari chuckled as she entered a series of commands into a small device on her wrist. With a faint hiss, the hatch slid open, revealing a ladder leading down into darkness. After you, she said, gesturing grandly. Gee, thanks, Owen muttered, climbing down into the unknown. If I find alien spiders down here, I'm out. The ladder led to a small, dimly lit chamber that pulsed with faint blue light. The air smelled faintly metallic, and the walls were lined with smooth, seamless panels that hummed softly. In the center of the chamber sat the spaceship, a sleek, teardrop-shaped craft that looked like it had been plucked straight out of a sci-fi movie. Okay, Owen said, staring at the ship in awe. I take back everything I said about your toaster weapon. This is way cooler. Kailari smiled faintly. Glad you approve. Now let's get moving before the Gravath figure out where we are. The interior of the ship was even more impressive than the exterior, with glowing consoles and holographic displays that flickered to life as Kailari powered up the systems. Owen settled into one of the cushioned seats, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. "So, how fast does this thing go?" he asked, trying to mask his nerves with curiosity. "Fast enough to outrun most Gravith ships," Kailari said, her hands flying over the controls. "But let's hope we don't have to test that." "Great," Owen said, gripping the armrests. "Let me know when we're not about to die." Kailari rolled her eyes. "You're not going to die. Probably." "Very reassuring," Owen muttered. "You should consider a career in motivational speaking." Kailari smirked, but didn't reply, her focus shifting to the holographic display in front of her. Lines of alien text scrolled across the screen as she plotted their course. "We'll need to take a detour," she said after a moment. "The Gravath are patrolling the direct route to the outpost." Owen frowned. "Isn't that risky? What if they're waiting for us on the detour?" Kailari glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "Every route is risky, but this one gives us the best chance of avoiding detection." Owen exhaled slowly, trying to steady his nerves. "Okay, let's do it." Kailari nodded, and the ship hummed to life, its engines glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. As they lifted off, Owen couldn't help but glance out the window, watching his house, and his old life, recede into the distance. "Goodbye, normalcy," he muttered. "Not that I had much of it to begin with." Kailari shot him a sympathetic look. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry you got dragged into this." Owen managed a weak smile. "Hey, if I survive this, at least I'll have a cool story to tell." Kailari chuckled. "Let's make sure it has a happy ending." As the ship broke through Earth's atmosphere and into the vast expanse of space, Owen felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. For better or worse, his life would never be the same. And as much as he wanted to crack a joke to ease the tension, he couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Because sometimes, even in the face of overwhelming odds, a little hope was enough. The ship hummed softly as it cruised through the endless void of space. Owen sat in the co-pilot's seat, his hands gripping the armrests like a novice roller coaster rider. Every flicker of light outside the window set his nerves on edge. "So, this is space," Owen said, his voice tinged with awe and apprehension. "Looks a lot like a really dark screensaver." Kailari didn't look up from the glowing console. "Don't be fooled by the calm. Space has a way of surprising you when you least expect it." "Oh, good," Owen muttered. "I was worried this whole fugitive-on-the-run thing was getting too relaxing." Kailari smirked but didn't reply, her focus on the navigational hologram in front of her. Owen watched as glowing lines and symbols shifted, the detour route taking shape. "How long until we reach this safe haven?" Owen asked, trying to mask his impatience with curiosity. "Assuming we don't encounter any Gravith patrols or cosmic anomalies," Kailari replied. "About 6 hours." "And if we do encounter those things?" Kailari finally looked at him, her glowing eyes sparkling with dry humor. "Then I hope you brought a change of underwear." The first couple of hours passed uneventfully, though Owen couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The ship's interior was both sleek and alien, with its soft lighting and seamless design. It was undeniably cool, but it also felt slightly unnerving, like stepping into a high-tech haunted house. "Okay," Owen said, breaking the silence. "Since we're stuck in here together, let's play a game." Kailari raised an eyebrow. "A game?" "Yeah," Owen said. "It's called 2 Truths and a Lie. You say 3 things about yourself, 2 true, 1 false, and I have to guess the lie." Kailari blinked, clearly unaccustomed to Earth's party games. "That sounds unnecessary." "Come on," Owen said. "We've got time to kill, and it's better than me rambling about Earth stuff you don't care about." Kailari sighed but relented. "Fine, I'll go first." She paused, thinking for a moment. I once stole a Gravith general's warship. I'm allergic to hydrogen-based foods, and I can communicate with animals. Owen frowned, studying her face. Okay, the first one is definitely true because you're basically a professional troublemaker. The second one, I have no idea what hydrogen-based foods are, but it sounds legit, so I'm going to say the third one is the lie. Kailari's lips twitched in amusement. Wrong. I can communicate with animals. What? Owen exclaimed. Like, all animals? Not all, Kailari clarified. Mostly mammals and some avians. Reptiles are complicated. Owen shook his head in disbelief. Okay, but why is that not the first thing you told me when we met? Kailari shrugged. It didn't seem relevant at the time. Oh, sure, Owen said sarcastically, because being able to Dr. Dolittle your way through life is totally irrelevant. Kailari chuckled, but her amusement was cut short as the ship's alarm blared. The holographic display lit up with flashing red symbols, and Kailari's expression darkened. What is it? Owen asked, his heart racing. Gravath Patrol, Kailari said grimly. They've picked up our trail. The ship's sleek engines roared as Kailari took evasive action, weaving through a field of swirling asteroids. The Gravath ship, an angular, menacing vessel that looked like it had been designed by someone with a grudge against geometry, closed in, its weapons glowing ominously. Do they have to make their ships look so evil? Owen muttered, gripping the armrests. Intimidation is part of their strategy, Kailari said, her tone clipped. Hold on. The ship lurched sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding a plasma blast that lit up the asteroid field like fireworks. Owen let out an undignified yelp, earning a smirk from Kailari despite the dire circumstances. Maybe less yanking on the controls, Owen suggested. I'd like to keep my internal organs where they are. Would you prefer vaporization? Kailari shot back. Fair point, Owen conceded, clutching the seat for dear life. Kailari's hands flew over the controls, her movements precise and fluid. The ship darted and twisted, using the asteroids as cover while returning fire with bursts of energy that glowed an electric blue. One of the shots hit its mark, sending the Gravath ship spinning briefly before it regained control. Nice shot, Owen said, his voice tinged with both admiration and terror. Can we do that like 10 more times? Kailari didn't reply, her focus unyielding. She pulled up another holographic display, this one showing a nearby anomaly, a swirling vortex of energy that pulsed with chaotic colors. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Owen asked, pointing to the vortex. Depends, Kailari said. If we fly through it, there's a 50% chance we'll lose the Gravath, and a 50% chance we'll end up in an entirely different dimension. Fantastic, Owen said. So it's a cosmic coin flip. Pretty much, Kailari said, her tone light despite the tension. You wanted adventure, didn't you? I wanted to finish my leftover pizza, Owen grumbled. Big difference. Kailari smirked and angled the ship toward the vortex. The Gravath vessel hesitated, clearly wary of following them into the anomaly. Kailari took advantage of the pause, accelerating into the swirling energy with a burst of speed. The ship shuddered violently as it entered the vortex, the view outside the window dissolving into a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. Owen felt his stomach lurch and clenched his teeth, determined not to throw up. This is normal, right? He asked, his voice strained. For an anomaly? Sure, Kailari said, though her grip on the controls was visibly tense. The turbulence lasted for what felt like an eternity, but eventually the ship emerged into calm space. The view outside was disorientingly serene, a vast, empty expanse, with no sign of the Gravath. Did we make it? Owen asked, his voice filled with cautious hope. Kailari checked the displays, her expression softening. It seems so. The Gravath didn't follow. Owen exhaled, slumping back in his seat. Well, that was horrifying. Let's never do it again. Kailari chuckled. Agreed. but at least we've bought ourselves some time. As the ship resumed its course toward the Resistance outpost, Owen couldn't help but feel a strange mix of relief and anticipation. They'd survived another close call, but the journey was far from over, and despite the danger, he couldn't deny the thrill of being part of something bigger than himself. "Hey, Kailari," he said, breaking the silence. "Thanks for not letting me die back there." She glanced at him, her expression softening. "Don't thank me yet. We still have a long way to go." "Great," Owen said with a wry smile. "More opportunities for me to embarrass myself." Kailari laughed, the sound light and genuine, as the ship disappeared into the vastness of space. The hidden outpost revealed itself slowly, like a mirage emerging from the void. Suspended in the orbit of a dying star, the station resembled a colossal spiral shell, its surface gleaming faintly with bioluminescent patterns. Tendrils of light coiled outward, scanning the ship as Kailari expertly maneuvered them into a docking bay. Owen peered out the window, his mouth agape. This looks like something Salvador Dali would design if he were on a lot of space mushrooms. Kailari raised an eyebrow. "I don't know who that is, but I assume it's a compliment." "Absolutely," Owen said, though he muttered under his breath, "more or less." The docking process was seamless. As the ship settled, a low hum reverberated through the hull. Kailari powered down the engines and turned to Owen, her face a blend of relief and determination. "We made it," she said, though her tone carried a note of caution. "Yeah, but for how long?" Owen asked, his unease creeping back. "It's only a matter of time before the Gravith find this place." Kailari nodded. "That's why we need to move quickly. The Resistance will help us organize a countermeasure. But first—" She hesitated, her usually composed demeanor faltering. "I need to introduce you to someone." The air inside the outpost was warm and filled with the faint scent of ozone. Owen followed Kailari through winding corridors that glowed softly underfoot. The walls were lined with alien text and intricate murals, telling stories of battles, alliances, and sacrifices. Owen felt an odd sense of both insignificance and belonging. "So this Resistance of yours," he began, trying to fill the silence. "Do they have like a membership card, or do I just get an honorary title like Earthling-in-Chief?" Kailari smirked. "If they like you, maybe they'll give you a badge, but don't get your hopes up." They entered a circular chamber filled with Resistance members of all shapes and sizes. Some were humanoid, while others resembled walking coral reefs or clusters of floating orbs. A tall figure with iridescent skin stepped forward, their golden eyes locking onto Kailari. "Kailari," the figure said, their voice melodic yet commanding, "you've returned." "I had no choice, Liska," Kailari replied. "The Gravith are closing in, and we need reinforcements." Liska's gaze shifted to Owen, their expression unreadable. "And this is the human?" "Hey," Owen said, raising a hand. "I have a name, you know. It's Owen. Nice to meet you, Your Majesty?" Kailari coughed, clearly suppressing a laugh. "Liska isn't royalty. They're one of the Resistance leaders." "Ah," Owen said, lowering his hand. "Then just nice to meet you, Works." Liska tilted their head, their eyes narrowing slightly. "You brought an outsider into the heart of the Resistance. Why?" Kailari squared her shoulders. "Because he saved my life, and because he's proven himself capable. Owen isn't just an outsider. He's an ally." Owen blinked, momentarily stunned. Despite all the sarcasm and chaos, her words carried a genuine weight he hadn't expected. It was the first time he felt more than a tag-along in this intergalactic game of survival. "Well, when you put it like that," Owen said, grinning awkwardly, "I guess I am kind of awesome." Liska's lips twitched, possibly the faintest hint of amusement. "Very well. If Kailari vouches for you, then you're welcome here, for now." "Wow," Owen muttered to Kailari. "They really roll out the red carpet for guests, huh?" The Resistance meeting was a whirlwind of strategy and alien jargon that Owen barely understood. Holographic maps flickered in midair, displaying Gravith fleet movements and potential escape routes. Kailari stood at the center, her voice steady as she laid out their plan. A diversion to scatter the Gravath forces, while a small team infiltrated their flagship to disable their command systems. "This is suicide," one of the resistance members said, their voice tinged with fear. "The Gravath are too powerful." "So what's the alternative?" Kaelari countered. "Hide here until they find us? Sacrifice every free system to their tyranny?" The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over the group like a heavy fog. Finally, Liska spoke. "She's right. We can't win by running, but this plan will only work if we have someone to lead the diversion." Owen felt all eyes turn to him. He blinked, pointing to himself. "Wait, me? I think you've got the wrong Earthling. I'm more of a support character, you know?" Kaelari smirked. "You wanted adventure, didn't you?" "Not this kind of adventure," Owen said. "I was thinking more along the lines of a treasure hunt, maybe a dramatic romance subplot, not leading a suicide mission." Kaelari stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "You won't be alone. The Resistance will be with you, and this is our best chance to end the Gravath's reign of terror." Owen swallowed hard, his palms sweaty, but as he looked around the room, at the desperate yet determined faces, he realized he couldn't back out. Not now. "Fine," he said, his voice shaky but resolute. "Let's do it, but if I die, I'm haunting you." Kaelari grinned. "Deal." The plan unfolded with precision. Owen led a fleet of resistance ships, their engines blazing as they engaged the Gravath forces. Despite his fear, he found himself giving orders with surprising confidence, his sarcastic humor keeping the tension bearable. "Okay, team," he said into the comms. "Remember, shoot the bad guys, not each other. Let's try to keep the friendly fire to a minimum." Meanwhile, Kaelari and her team infiltrated the Gravath flagship, disabling its command systems and planting a device that scrambled their fleet's communications. The Gravath forces, thrown into chaos, began retreating. When the mission ended, the resistance outpost erupted into cheers. Owen stumbled out of his ship, exhausted but alive, and was immediately enveloped in a hug by Kaelari. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. "We did it," Owen corrected, his grin tired but genuine. In the aftermath, Owen found himself staring out at the stars, a quiet sense of accomplishment settling over him. Kaelari joined him, her expression contemplative. "You've changed," she said softly. "Yeah," Owen replied. "I guess saving the galaxy does that to a guy." Kaelari smiled. "You've earned your place here, you know, if you want it." Owen considered her words, the weight of the decision pressing on him. But for the first time, he felt ready to embrace the unknown. "Let's see where the stars take us," he said, his voice steady. Kaelari nodded, her smile widening. Together they turned toward the future, uncertain but filled with endless possibilities.